Well, today we're in Psalm 15, and we're seeing a profile of perfection, the perfection that it takes to have a relationship with God, thereby the perfection that crushes us because none of us can live up to it or have lived up to it, and the perfection that's represented in Jesus, that he came and fulfilled all of God's righteous expectations and demands. So we're reading a profile of who Jesus is in his fullness. We're then reading a profile of the righteousness that God confers upon us. There's so many layers to the view of this, but it's not just what it takes to get to God. In that case, it flattens me. It's also what Jesus is as he came to me. In that case, it lifts me in value. It's also what Jesus, by faith in him, confers upon me judicially and positionally. It's who he says I am, even though I know I'm not. Wow, that would humble me in grace and yet hold me in value, that this is how God sees me. It would give me a wonderful and large sense of God's goodness and God's love for me, his selfless love for me. And then finally, it's a profile of who Jesus wants to make me and promises that I ultimately one day will be, as I am not just growing into his image in this life, but as one day, in a moment, I will be changed, you will be changed. In the twinkling of an eye, we will be like him, for we shall see him as he is. So as we read these 5 verses, it is who you are not. That's why you need Jesus. It is who Jesus is on your behalf. That's why you need Jesus. It is how Jesus sees you. That's why you need to understand who Jesus is and how he loves you. And it is who Jesus is making you to become and who you will one day be. And so, wow, what grace. And it is his work in you. It is not your work for him that produces this. Trying harder at these things is not the way to become these things. The way to become these things is to trust, and every day to wake up and yield control of your life to the presence of the Spirit of God and ask Jesus to grow in you and to grow through you. And the life you now live, you live by the faith of the Son of God that lives in you. I am crucified with Christ, Paul said. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. I believe that's Galatians. What a great principle. So let's read it. Who shall abide, Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness and speaketh the truth in his heart. So perfect character, perfect behavior, perfect thoughts. Verse 3, he that backbiteth not with his tongue, perfect words, nor doeth evil to his neighbor, perfect relationships, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor, perfect forgiveness. Verse 4, here's where we left off yesterday. In whose eyes a vile person is contemned. What is that? Perfect integrity, perfect assessment, perfect judgment, perfect discernment. This person is, let's read the verse. In whose eyes a vile person is contemned, but he honoreth them that fear the Lord. So perfect judgment, perfect evaluation. This person is not politically motivated. He doesn't wink at the sin of those relationships that are beneficial towards him and then just condemn those that are of no use to him. He doesn't work with a subtext of judicial corruption. He doesn't view the relationships of life through the lens of his own, what benefits me the most. No, he has perfect judgment. He makes judgment calls based on what is right and wrong. And he knows when he sees wrong, and he knows when he sees right. And when there's vileness, he calls it. When there's wickedness, he calls it, even if it's to his own hurt. And when there's honor to the Lord, he honoreth them that feareth the Lord, regardless of their status, regardless of their social status, their economic status. Someone that honors the Lord, he honors. Someone that dishonors God, he calls it as he sees it. That's verse 4. So perfect judgment. Look at the end of verse 4. He that sweareth to his own hurt and changeth not. perfect word, perfect dependability, perfect integrity. What is he saying? The man that makes a commitment, sweareth, is a commitment. I'm giving my word. I'm making a vow to his own hurt. He makes a vow when it's right. He makes a commitment when it's right, even if he doesn't benefit from that commitment. And changeth not. So he makes a commitment, and if it goes bad, he doesn't change his commitment based on whether he is advantaged or not. He doesn't change the commitment based on whether he's losing or gaining money or gaining ground or social status. No, he gives his word and he keeps his word. Okay. So perfect word, perfect integrity, perfect dependability, perfect trustworthiness. Hey, credibility. That's another word. That's another idea here. Perfect credibility. Do you understand? Again, this is who Jesus is. This is who I am not. This is who Jesus is. This is who Jesus became for me and fulfilled for me. This is what Jesus is shaping in me. This is what Jesus will one day make me. He's making me this now. If these things are starting to show up in your life genuinely, authentically, you're not contriving them or manufacturing them with just sheer effort against your will. I mean, if these are organically growing as a part of a renewed will in your life, if you want to keep your word even when it costs you, if you want to call things equitably even when it's working against you or not in your favor, then if your integrity is growing, if your character is growing, if your judicial sense of things is growing, if you're living with a growing sense of justice in your life, what is right, not just what benefits me, then that's the work of Jesus in you, and that's growth in grace. And it's a long runway. It's going to take the rest of your life. So don't be too hard on yourself that these things are struggles in our lives right now. Just keep this as the ideal. Jesus is this to me, for me, on my behalf. He's becoming this in me. He's growing this out of me. And one day he will finish the work. What a great profile of a person that keeps his word. He sweareth to his own hurt and changeth not. Well, we'll leave it there today, my friend, and we'll pick it up tomorrow in the final verse of this chapter, a profile of perfection. Jesus is to you. Jesus is for you. Jesus is in you, making you these things. So the best thing you can do today is pray and surrender and say, Jesus, fill me and use me and grow me today by your grace. Happy Friday. I'll see you this weekend or on Monday.